I'm Yolanda Fair. I'm a law student at UNC-Chapel Hill in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and I'm with Women North Carolina. It's a local nonprofit in Raleigh that brings students to the CSW.
Yolanda, can you speak to the power of bringing women from all around the world together for the UNCSW?
Yeah, I think having so many different views and so many different experiences just gives, relevant messages, but also relevant experience to the discussion. At least for me, there's a lot of things I've never heard about or even knew existed, but having people communicate from all over the world has brought light to so many issues.
Like, what was one surprise for you?
So sextortion. I went to a panel on sextortion.
Sextortion?
Sextortion, yeah.
What is sextortion?
Well, so it's using sex and it's kind of the combining sex and corruption. And so it's usually officials using sex as a way to get power. So an example they gave is like an officer sleeping with someone so that they can be released from jail. So an officer saying, if you sleep with me, you can get out of jail, or that kind of thing. But yeah, using sex as a tool of corruption.
Yolanda, the theme this year is preventing and ending violence against women and girls. How does this issue connect with you on a personal level?
Yeah, I think as a woman, every time I go out at night on the street, I always think about my safety. And so even though I've never been a victim of violence, I think about it. And my dad's a police officer, and so I've always been raised to watch my surroundings. And I've also had a lot of friends who've been victim of college violence, unfortunately, and it is a pervasive thing on college campuses. And so the realism of it, but also just the fact that I'm always thinking about it as a woman too.
Today we were discussing solutions. What is one solution that you'll take away with you and hopefully implement?
I think the power of collaborations. I think being able to involve all forms of individuals, but governments and nonprofits, also the private sector, just to help and rebuild, but also just to create organizations to help victims and survivors. But I think just the power of a collaboration is one of the big takeaways I've gotten out of this.
For women and men and girls who couldn't participate in the UNCSW this year, what would be the top 3 things that you would suggest to them about what they can do on helping to end violence against women and girls?
Yeah, I think one of the first things is just to educate others. So now if you're listening to this or if you hear it, knowing that it exists and then letting other people know about that. But I also think being a support for victims and survivors. So if you do know someone who's been a survivor of domestic violence or other forms of violence, making sure that they have the resources that they need. So being able to connect them to resources that they need. And I also just think, speaking out to people who have authority. So if that's your congressperson, or if that's the local leader of your church, or people who have authority, making sure the issue is communicated to those people, but to all areas of society too.
My last question is, what would be your message to women around the world?
I would say to continue to work against this particular issue, but also just to be empowered to use your voice and to use wherever you are in your every state of life to continue to help and support other women around the world.
Thanks. I have one more question. I never asked this, but since it's around preventing violence against women and girls, what would be your message to the men and the boys?
Oh yeah, I think I would tell the men that they play a very vital role in this discussion. I think most people have a friend or a sister or a mother who have either been a victim of violence or who have just dealt with the issue in some way, who are worried about going out on the street at night. So they can be a means of just creating a discussion, but also just a means of getting the discussion out to men. And so men play a vital role because sometimes they are the perpetrators of violence.